Last month, Nintendo finally revealed the successor to the Nintendo Switch, and at the end of that video was a brief reveal of the new Mario Kart, the follow-up to the best-selling Switch title Mario Kart 8. And when we say best-selling, we mean an eye-watering 67.3 million units sold, or over 75 million if you include the Wii U original. So before Nintendo reveal much more about the game they're getting ready for us, I thought it would be a fun exercise to think about what I would bring to the new game if I was game director at Nintendo, as it should illuminate the thought process of how I approach a new game in development. So stick around to the end where I will be revealing my ideas for features and content of the new Mario Kart game for Switch 2. Let's go! Okay, so it's day one on the new project, and the first thing I want to know is, why does this project exist? What are our goals and objectives? What do we want to get out of this project? For the purpose of the exercise, I am going to make assumptions, and I am going to assume that the number one goal for the new Mario Kart on Switch 2 is to migrate users from Switch 1 onto the new Switch 2 platform. Using a beloved franchise and the best-selling game on the platform is a smart way to do this. Consider what it's not. It's not a project about rebooting a flagging franchise. This is a franchise that's in rude health. It's not about correcting mistakes in the last iteration, and it's not about bringing new players onto the platform. Look at those numbers. They don't need a new audience. What they need to do is serve the existing audience. So what does migrating people onto this platform look like? Well, it looks like a Switch 2 exclusive. If people can get the new Mario Kart on the old platform, they've got no reason to buy up. It also looks like selling the features of the new console. We see this frequently in Mario Kart history, with the original supporting Mode 7, the sequel showing off 3D and the 4-player split screen, the DS version using the second screen for a permanent minimap and utilising Wi-Fi for the first online experience, 3DS enabling local wireless play from a single cartridge, not to mention stereoscopic 3D graphics, the Wii version utilising motion controls, Wii U putting options on the controller screen, and Switch offering up to 8-player local wireless play. So what is the big Switch 2 hardware innovation that the new Mario Kart can use? It would seem the answer is not much. At least not from what's been announced. Unlike every other major Nintendo release in its history, Switch 2 is apparently more of the same. Which, when the same is the Nintendo Switch, is probably no bad thing. Plus there may be some surprises still to come. There's talk, for instance, of the controllers operating as a mouse. Could our new Mario Kart use a mouse input for play? I'm not sure about that. My view is that we're looking for a solid update to Mario Kart, nothing gimmicky that will alienate the existing players. So let's go back to our objectives. A new entry that delights Mario Kart fans, that is only possible on Switch 2. And given that Mario Kart has lasted nearly 12 years, a game that serves as a platform for future content and updates for 5 or more years. Now, even if we don't have some brand new hardware innovation to support, we do want new features that we can talk about. So I'm going to present my ideas in 3 layers. Firstly, hygiene features. These are the things that players will expect and that are kind of necessary in a modern game. Then I'll have some little I and some big I innovations. That is, some small new features and some big new features that we can put on the key art and shout loudest about. But there's one last thing to talk about before we get into this, which is audience. There's no point suggesting any ideas without talking about who they are for. Now, sometimes I think about audience in terms of emotional need, and Mario Kart is a kind of all-rounder. It's for that reason that it's my personal desert island game. If I only had to live with one game for the rest of my life, I'm going to pick Mario Kart. Why? Because if I want to chill or be energized, if I want to play alone or with friends, if I want to compete or collaborate, if I've got 10 minutes or 5 hours, Mario Kart will serve that need. Now, for the purpose of this exercise, I'm going to define the audience in the following 3 groups. Firstly, there are Nintendo fans, which sounds pretty circular, right? Like I could be saying, this is for PlayStation fans and this is for Xbox fans. And if Nintendo make it, then Nintendo fans will like it. But it's different with Nintendo, and I think we all instinctively understand that. It's a bit like Disney. There's a legacy that they protect. And Mario Kart, like Super Smash Bros., is a kind of celebration of their IPs. It's almost Nintendo Kart. So when we're thinking about Nintendo fans as an audience group, we're talking about the ones that get excited about heritage and nostalgia and collection. After Nintendo fans, I have competitive friends. These are the people who play to win. Nintendo love a close race. The people at the back are given an advantage, and the people at the front are disadvantaged to shrink the gap between them. And that's catnip to competitive friends who love excitement and competition. Next, we have our family fun. Mario Kart is a great early game to play with young kids and can involve the whole family. They've always had speed and difficulty settings that give a comfortable access point, the 50cc mode. But Mario Kart 8 went even further with auto steer and auto accelerate options. For this audience type, we're looking at joy and accessibility. And I'm going to throw in one final word that unites all of those groups, and that word is variety. Variety of courses, from the happy, bright, lush Mario circuit to the frightening and intense Bowser's Castle to the acid trip and top draw challenge of Rainbow Road. Variety in characters and karts, variety in course design and features. These all keep the experience fresh and engaging for all of our audience types. Now, the important thing about audiences is defining. I might be wrong about these types, but by defining them, we can challenge and interrogate them. And if I actually was working for Nintendo, we would have data that can see whether it supports or contradicts these assumptions. But if we don't start by defining who we think we're making it for, how on earth can we validate and check any of our choices? Right, now we have our audiences in mind, we can get on with the fun of imagining new features and content for the new Mario Kart. Remember, we're going to do this in 3 layers: hygiene, small innovation, and ending with big innovation. So starting with the hygiene features, remember these are things that we think the players are going to expect. No real surprises, that's going to start with characters. The cast of characters has always been a huge draw in Mario Kart, and players are going to want more. So we'll keep the classics in place, but we want to add some. So let's start by looking at Super Smash Bros. There we'll find Nintendo characters like Banjo and Kazooie, Kirby, the Wii Fit trainer, Samus, and Pit from Kid Icarus. And like Smash, they might even extend to non-Nintendo characters like Solid Snake, Pac-Man, Ryu, and Bayonetta, for example. Now, my hunch is that they won't do this, at least not initially, and I still think there's quite a lot to draw on from the games that have been released since Mario Kart 8 came out. For example, there are plenty of Peach variants from her Showtime game. There's some fun new characters from Mario Wonder, including the returning Nabbit, the remastered Paper Mario with Vivian, Luigi's Mansion and Gooigi, and then there's a ton of Animal Crossing characters like KK Slider and Tom Nook, and my goodness, if they ever decided to support Pokemon, there would be a decade's worth of content just there. Now, new tracks are a dead set for the new game, of course. And we should expect updated versions of classics like Bowser's Castle and Mario Circuit. New tracks again will draw from existing games and new releases since the last Mario Kart. So again, Paper Mario comes to mind, along with Metroid, either Dread or the remastered Prime or both. And there's more untapped locations from Animal Crossing. My vote would be for an Animal Crossing museum themed track, for example. As an outlier, they might take a similar tack to Astrobot on PS5, and that's to celebrate the hardware. Nintendo has a long history of iconic hardware, including curios like Rob the NES Robot and Power Glove, and racing Micro Machines style around and through them could be fantastic. Incidentally, the more they released DLC for Mario Kart 8, the more they bent the rules about how tracks work, including several that didn't loop but were linear tracks with checkpoints instead of laps, procedurally generated features in the case of Excitebike, and the switching on and off of different sections that were popular in the city maps. Expect to see more of that in the new game. Now, some of you might be thinking about course customization and user-generated content. After all, lots of games now include create modes. But I think it's a bad idea to introduce this to Mario Kart for a number of reasons. Firstly, in racing games, it's about memorizing the track layout, at least for the competitive friends. It's about shaving seconds and milliseconds off of your lap times. It's about finding secret shortcuts and figuring out when best to use your speed boosts. That's not possible when faced with a seemingly never-ending line of unseen user-generated tracks. We talked about the importance of collection to the Nintendo fan audience group and the competitive friends group. Games with hundreds of user-generated levels pose a frustrating, incompletable challenge to these players. Worst of all, in multiplayer online games like Mario Kart, we need active players to race against, and the way to achieve this is by first creating the cohort and then getting them to choose the tracks. With created levels, as we saw with Fall Guys, it can overnight dilute your active players to the point where you can no longer find people to play with, and thus it kills the fundamentals of your experience. Relatedly, you put all that work into a level that you create and then no one plays it. It's just so disappointing. Not to mention quality. The Nintendo seal of approval doesn't apply to things that most people make. Super Mario Maker shows how they attempted to solve this with their creative platformer. Super Mario Maker. There's a clue about how they might do it. Imagine instead of creating a complete and comprehensive level creation system where you can make as many tracks as you like, imagine instead there was one customizable track called the Mario Maker track. And inside of it you can do whatever you like, but there's only one of them. And then when you're playing online and the game is giving you the option of which tracks to play, if the group picks the Mario Maker track, it then chooses from one of the players in that cohort who's made or customized that track, and then that's the one you play. That solves two problems. That keeps the cohorts big and it enables you to play your track with other people. That might be a way to do it. The only problem is it's a lot of work for Nintendo for one course, but then they got a lot of money to do it. And if it's creativity with constraints, might be a fun addition. Now, still with the hygiene features, players are going to expect new weapons. And this is the category that scares me the most. The weapons are so calibrated to the experience that small changes could throw it off balance. Plus, we're over 30 years into this franchise now, so what new ideas are there? The Mario platformers might be a clue to this, especially the ones released since Mario Kart 8. So we have the shrunk carts from where the lightning ability is used and all of the carts shrink. But what about the giant mushroom from Mario 3D World? What if that was a power-up and your cart grew in size and then you could squish other racers and knock down big walls? Sounds pretty good. But then every track would have to be designed so that the player could deploy that power-up at any time. It's a bit of a nightmare, actually. Mario's water cannon from Sunshine or Luigi's vacuum tool from Luigi's Mansion could offer devices that use the environment. For example, when you go through water, you suck it into the device. When you go past fire, you can suck it into the device, and then when you deploy it, it fires out whatever it has taken in. This mechanic was repeated in Mario Wonder with the elephant power-up. Rocket League has some fun power-ups that could be inspiration. My favourite is the spiked vehicle, which, interpreting it for Mario Kart, could protect you from shells and burst the tyres of those that you drive into. There's also the idea from Rocket League of swapping places, which I might get to in a minute. Also, in hygiene features, I would think about swapping the accelerate and brake to the two shoulder buttons. Now, some might argue that they are currently face buttons for accessibility reasons, and I can understand that, but we're at a point where it's become standard for driving games to put them on the shoulder buttons, so arguably, is it more accessible to go with convention? I'd at least include it as an option. Also, I think they need to take a look at their online features, particularly something like voice chat, which maybe they restrict to friends, but with voice chat you then need griefing options. Expect to see that feature set being brought up to date. And while we're thinking about online, we should consider clip sharing on social media and how to improve the in-game tools. No doubt it's fun to capture those knife-edge moments, though the process of making something shareable can be clunky, and worse, it can take you out of the core game loop to stop to edit a video. It's quite likely that they'll tackle this at a platform level rather than at a game level. As a development team, it's one of those areas where if you're not using system functions, you know that nonetheless you're getting very close to fiercely protected functionality. As we progress, we check our ideas against our audience and objective assumptions. Aside from a few things that feel slightly advanced for our family group, these features are matching our audience targets and feel like things that will enhance the way that they currently play. Okay, let's get on with the innovative stuff. So first, the small eye innovations. And the first one is what I am calling the Grudge feature. I think that this would fit so perfectly with Mario Kart, and it would work a bit like this. When you take out one of the other carts with your weapon, you then become their rival. That is, every time they see you from now on, along with your name, there's a little icon that represents this is the rival. For the rest of the race, they know that you are that attacker. Well, the rest of the race until that is you take revenge. You see, if you then take out your rival, they see a special revenge sound effect and VFX. They know that you have retaliated. Maybe Mario Kart would use softer language like payback or something like that. Now this fits perfectly in the spirit of Mario Kart, but there is more that we can do with it. We can offer customization of this payback feature. You can choose the sound effects, you can choose the visual effects. We want to reward play in Mario Kart, so why not have a whole collection of sounds and VFX where you can build your payback effect so that that person knows it was you. It's kind of like a Mario Kart taunt. Using this feature, we can also introduce new weapons. Imagine a yellow turtle shell. It works like a green turtle shell unless you have a rival. If you have a rival, then firing the yellow shell, it works like a homing shell and it goes straight for them and takes them out. Suddenly it makes attacking people slightly riskier because the chances of retaliation increase. Who doesn't want to take revenge on the person who took them out in Mario Kart? I do. Plus, it continues the philosophy of rubber banding. That is, the person who attacks you and gets an advantage inadvertently gives you an advantage to get them back. And remember earlier when I was talking about a weapon that swaps places? It fits in here. A special power-up which, when you use it, swaps your place with your rival. That one might be a little bit OP. The next little eye innovation is player-activated level changes. We already see in Mario Kart 8 level changes such as branches opening or closing on subsequent laps or elements appearing and disappearing. In Hyrule Circuit there is a panel to jump over the Master Sword which opens if the player has hit the 3 crystals before it. Now I'm not sure that this is particularly clear to players in all honesty. Even when you deliberately hit those 3 switches, the game doesn't connect those events particularly clearly, in my opinion. But let's take this idea and run with it. Look at all the Mario platformers that have platforms that disappear when you jump on them, or when you jump on them a certain number of times, or blocks that disappear when you shoot them. Now imagine that applying to Mario Kart. Imagine a bit of the track where if you hop on it a certain number of times, it breaks and then you can go down underneath the track. The point is to give players even more agency over the race. The next one I absolutely love, and it's taking the badge system from Mario Wonder. Now if you don't know, the badges in Mario Wonder work like perks. You unlock them as you play through the game, and then when you start a level you choose which one you want to activate. Now imagine in Mario Kart, for example, a badge that means you're immune to the first blue shell hit. How brilliant would that be? Or if you fell off the world, you bounce immediately back on without penalty. Or one where if you're hit by a shell, you immediately fire off a red shell. Or imagine one where if you get hit by someone, you get a small speed boost. Or one where if you hop, you can float for a second. So the player collects these through the experience and then they choose which one they want to assign to suit their racing style. So perhaps they require some kind of currency to use. The coin system is the one, obviously. Perhaps you need all 10 coins before your badge activates, which means they're only really going to work in the final lap. Maybe you need to have some coins, so if you run out of coins, they stop working. Perhaps using them costs you a certain number of coins. I mean, it's all starting to sound a little bit complex, and the important thing with Mario Kart is keeping it simple, but the idea, there's a lot in it. Now, there's probably lots of other small little innovations, for example looking at the battle mode and maybe putting in a stunt course or some kind of boss or something like that. Again, we reflect back on the audience assumptions and this time it feels like a clean sheet. With all of the ideas applying well to our audience types, the only thing that concerns me at this point is the question of whether there's anything here that is really selling the new console. But let's get to the big eye innovation. And what we mean by big eye innovation is something that we can put front and center. We can put it on the key art. It can be the main thing that people talk about or we include in our marketing. If you think about the ideas we've just discussed, badges and grudges, they're not really big enough. Now, before we reveal it, let's talk about some of the other big innovations in the series so far. So we've had the 2 character swapping in Double Dash on GameCube, motorbikes in Mario Kart Wii, gliders in Mario Kart 7 on 3DS, and anti-gravity karts in Mario Kart 8. So my proposed big eye innovation for Mario Kart Switch 2 is boats. Or more precisely, just like the automatic transformation of karts from normal karts to anti-grav or karts to glider, these would be an automatic aquatic adaptation. AAA. Does anyone remember Spy Hunter on the arcade in the 80s? It was a top-down racer and you could find ramps off the main road that would launch your car into water, from which you would proceed as a boat, and at the time it was the coolest thing. Now imagine the same thing in Mario Kart, jumping off the track into water, like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, but cool. The kart converts to having a hull. Now I should say that all of the ideas that we've discussed so far, including this one, are designed to work with what we already have. That is, we don't want ideas that are tacked on, but ones that integrate well. Remember, our objective is we don't want to rock the boat. This isn't about messing with the formula, it's about taking what we've got, which works, and making it bigger and better. So the boat idea is cool because it continues in the spirit of Mario Kart, speed and all. These will be fast boats after all, with genuine gameplay innovation. And that innovation is 3-dimensionality of movement. That is, that you will be able to control vertically where you go. Because these boats not only go across the surface, but if you press forward on the stick, they're going to dip down and operate like fast submarines through the water. And now we have control in the verticality, opening up new routes and options. But there's more. All the weapons have neat water effects. The lightning, for example, when used in the water, distributes current through the water, affecting others who are submersed. The ink splatter leaves an oil slick style hazard, effectively like a banana skin, but one that players can avoid by pressing forward on the stick and dipping underneath the water. The green shells skim across the top of the water, whilst red shells can dive into it, following players who've gone underneath. Water is also a great way to show off this new hardware, with plenty of cool water effects from splashes to torrents and more. Water is one of those litmus tests in games for console generations. It shows off the improvements in graphics as the hardware gets better, and now we get to see Switch 2 quality water, including waves. Which brings us to a point of Nintendo nostalgia and history that so far the series hasn't touched. Wave Race. What a joy it was to move vehicles on top of the bobbing sea. All those years ago, it just felt so ahead of its time and it was beloved by fans. And just like how Mario Kart 8 somehow incorporated F-Zero, so the new Mario Kart can incorporate Wave Race. And just imagine how cute all the characters are going to look with their snorkels and their life jackets. Final check of the feature ideas against our audience assumptions, and again we're trying to keep ourselves honest and match the needs of our players. This is the only category where conceivably we've suggested something that wouldn't be possible on the current gen, which is the emphasis on water. That said, it's only the quality of the effects and nothing that wouldn't be possible with some smart choices on the current system. So there you go, my vision for the new Mario Kart on Switch 2. But what do you think? What would you change? What would you do differently? Hopefully it's been useful to see my process for approaching new game projects, from figuring out the objectives, to the audience, and then to the game features themselves. Thinking about marketability, thinking about small innovations and big innovations. I can't wait to hear what the Big N actually has in store for us for Mario Kart on Switch 2. We've waited so long. Now, if you like this video and want me to do something similar for other titles, please let me know in the comments. This is a channel about pulling back the digital curtain and talking about how games are made in professional studios. So if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe and share and comment and all that good stuff. Let me know what it is you want me to talk about more. I've been Nathan Baseley. I hope to see you again next time.